for the Susan Taylor Podcast, where we discuss the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. Author of Feeling Good Matters, Sexual Radiance, and the Vital Energy Program, Dr. Taylor imparts authentic knowledge and practical tools that inspire, educate, and empower us to be a healing force for positive change. So join us and take your life and our planet to the next level.
Hello, and welcome to episode 11, Conscious Leadership, Create Your Future. In today's episode, we're going to talk about leaders and leadership and discuss the benefits of focusing on well-being as a part of a leadership path. And I'll provide some tips to get you started on the leadership path. We're launching the new year with this topic because leadership is really what we need for the future. So I'm really looking forward to speaking on this whole topic. So without further ado, let's get started. Everyone aspires to be great and possess the freedom and fulfillment that life has to offer. But few actually take the path of looking inward and recognizing that the fundamentals of leadership lie in our well-being. We're talking about well-being of the person, of the families, of the communities, and even the country. Well-being is the core and fundamental to all leadership. We experience well-being when we have the self-awareness that's needed, self-management, as well as the ability to manage our relationships. So we're here talking about leadership, not just in an organization and in a business sense, but leadership even in our own homes. The mother being the leader bringing together the children, the attitude, her self-awareness, her skills in self-management, as well as the ability to manage the relationships of herself with her children, as well as within the compound itself, the children's relationships with themselves, and with the father, of course. What is conscious leadership? Leadership is an inner skill set, rather than what is most often seen with the outer technical and psychological skill sets that are offered in the media, for example. We define a leader as an embodiment of consciousness that represents the desires and attitudes of a group. So if we're talking about a family, and let's just use the mother for example, the embodiment of consciousness that represents the desires and attitudes of the group, that's what she represents in the family structure. If we're talking about a leader in a community, the leader of the community will also represent the desires and attitudes of the group, as well as the leader of a country. That's why, people that complain or advocate, whoever our leaders are in the country, really, the leader is a representation of the collective consciousness of those citizens in the country. So just think about that for a moment. That's a pretty potent statement. The leader represents the collective consciousness. There's no accident why the leader is in office. So leaders represent, keep this in mind, the collective consciousness, and this is why we must look at who we have chosen to lead and who we don't choose to lead. We know what represents a good leader. We intuitively know this. But how to get there seems to be a challenge. The first and most fundamental quality that a leader has is having a collective vision, not an individual vision or an individual need or an individual mission or an individual dream. You notice I'm using the word individual quite often. When Dr. King gave his speech, I have a dream, he was thinking as we collectively. It was not for his personal interests or needs, passions, or even greed. He was thinking about a global vision to make the world a better place. He had that global vision that would benefit all of humanity. This concept alone is not what our current climate possesses or produces right now. And that's where we're falling into some glitches and having some difficulty. What makes a great leader? After reviewing the most current leadership courses, We found that most of them were based on research-oriented case studies, where the performance of what we view as successful leaders is reduced to a skill set and compared with others of less success. The courses do indeed provide a set of skills, but most skills are technical and managerial in their style. If we look at a leader from a humanistic point of view, or viewpoint for that matter, rather than a reductionist or allopathic model, I always talk about allopathic models in medicine, the reductionist approach, that model, well, if we look at it from that, we won't find it very useful. If we look, though, in the opposite direction of a leader from a humanistic viewpoint rather than this reductionist allopathic-like model, we'll find it much more difficult to use a technical skill set to define it. Because, in other words, I'm saying when we look at human skills, it's more challenging to replicate like on an assembly line of just skill sets. Human skills you just really can't replicate. It is simple as pressing a button. When people say computers will do what humans do, no, computers don't have that essence of what I'm talking about. They might have the skill sets in the sense that they're programmed that way, but they don't have what we call heart or soul, and that's what a human possesses. So don't be fooled by people saying robots will replace humans. They'll replace some skill sets, but not a human being. Human skills are the key to being a successful leader. A leader that has the charisma to inspire other people, to believe in the mission, and to support that vision, that universal vision. That's the only way you get the support, if there's a universal vision. And when we have a vision based on love and humanity and for the better good of society, that becomes a true charismatic leader. Perhaps we look at leadership from a holistic model. So I'm looking at it from a holistic model as opposed to that reductionist or allopathic model. And when we look holistically, we can dive deeper into those traits that make a great leader unique and charismatic. Again, great leaders like Dr. King, Abraham Lincoln even, Mahatma Gandhi, they have qualities that inspired the masses because of their loyalty, respect, and passion for serving society, not themselves. They were also respected and loved by the world because they reflected that. We don't see that when we have well-trained leaders and managers with leadership skill set. I'm not saying that they're not useful and they're not good, but they're not the same charismatic leader that these three that I just mentioned, Dr. King, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, there's been many more, even Mother Teresa, great leader, because they give of themselves. Skills can be acquired in training the consciousness to be loyal, compassionate, and genuine. This type of thinking goes beyond what has been called practical psychology. You know, it's been said that a successful leader isn't a person seeking control, power, or selfish motives that uses sheer psychological manipulation to bully the masses. A new type of leader will emerge and is emerging now from the depth of human consciousness, reflecting a better life, both inner and outer, to both the leader, herself or himself, and the group that she or he leads. Great leaders possess certain traits, and those traits can be acquired through this inner training that I'm talking about, namely working with the mind and its functions. I've identified 3 overall traits based on surveys from workshops that I've done, although there will be certainly more, but these are the 3 that I found most important. The first one being presence. That's first and foremost. Anyone that has presence, people are attracted to, because you don't find a great leader distracted by every changing environment. Their awareness is so focused on the issues at hand that these issues are forefront on their agenda. They don't look at the past harboring resentment, but they use it as a tool to navigate the choppy waters in the present. And they don't look for the future with uncertainty. They stay present in the moment, and when they speak to the human condition. They don't carry the fear of uncertainty. They use it as a challenge to move forward. They stay in the moment. The second trait that I found is self-empowerment. Great leaders are self-empowered. They exude confidence from knowing who they are. They don't feel above or beneath anyone. They're part of the whole. So criticism and other types of remarks don't affect them in a derogatory way. They use this to move forward and make necessary adjustments. When we are self-empowered, we have the strength and we rely on our inner consciousness to guide us. With self-empowerment, we're able to empower others. We can help others be successful. This is what holistic conscious leadership is all about. And the third step is integrity and compassion. Now, I mentioned presence and self-empowerment. Many leaders have presence and self-empowerment, but they still could be tyrants. They could still be tyrannical. But great leaders have one exceptional quality of loyalty, trust, and love for humanity itself. They look and listen with part of the mind that is not affected by the I. They replace the I for we. They're looking at the collective consciousness, realizing that they're part of the whole, and realizing that any action produces a vibration that affects the whole of the world. They have a collective vision, and this is why they have charisma. You really can't define it. I'm trying here to define it, that charisma. But you know who is charismatic. There's just that something. And you know what that something is? Love and joy. They're servants for society. Let's enlist in conscious leadership. Whether you're a leader in your family, your community, or in your work environment, train yourself to be healthy, happy, and holy. The three components of healing, healthy, happy, and holy, all derive from the same word, heal, to make whole. These three qualities give a sense of well-being. And when we feel good, others feel good also. When we're happy, others are happy, because that's what we exude and that's the vibration we send out. We must raise the consciousness of our immediate groups if we're going to create change in ourselves and our communities. One of the first skills to practice is inspiration. It's very practical. Inspire yourself by learning how to breathe correctly, skillfully, and efficiently. Once you have become so inspired, you can inspire others. And here are some tips. Remain calm, as I always say. Consciously aware, living in the moment. That's where you get your presence. Be present and listen attentively. Don't be working on something else while someone is talking to you. Really listen to what other people's needs are and what they have to say. Welcome periods of crisis. And what do I mean by that? The word crisis is spelled C-R-I-S-I-S. Crisis allows you to look at what is twice. So when a crisis appears, or what you perceive as a crisis, look at what is twice. Look as the observer. Look for opportunity in everything. Staying positive breeds positive change. Inspire yourself and leave behind the motivation. There's many motivation gurus. Motivate, motivate, motivate. But think about it. When you're inspired, it comes from the soul. When you motivate, it comes from the head. And we all need to move from our head to our heart. So inspire change. So inspire yourself and leave behind the motivation, because that inspiration will bring you forward. Ask yourself, how will you co-create the future? Notice how I said co-create, because we're all linked and we're all part of the whole. Think about it for a moment. You're in a room with people, both inhaling and exhaling. Their exhalation is part of your inhalation. Your exhalation is part of their inhalation. Just on this level, we're all connected. So whatever vibes come through an inhalation or exhalation are what we all take in. That's why if there's happiness within the room, it raises the room's vibratory quality. If there's resentment, it brings it down. Keep that in mind. How will you co-create, because we're all part of the whole, our future? Well, rather than be a victim of circumstance or play the blame game, we can shape our path forward. We can shape it moving forward in a positive way by asking ourselves some really resourceful questions. Here are some questions that we may want to ask ourselves so that we can be the architect of our own story. Ask yourself, what kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of family, community, or organization do you want to create? What kind of community or work team do you want to be part of? And what's my role in creating this? Asking these questions of what kind of world do I want to live in? What kind of family, community, or organization do I want to create? What kind of community or work team do I want to be part of? And what is my role in all of this? Will help you. Do it as a journal exercise, as I mentioned in Feeling Good Matters. Journaling is very important to bring your awareness forward and to help shape that awareness. We're in the midst of a new civilization. As leaders, we need to be aware of it and what we are going to do about it. In today's world, there's a transparency. There are no secrets. Great leaders are charismatic, and they externalize their internal representation on the world in positive ways to breed success for others. Success practiced consciously brings a better life, inner and outer, to both the leader and the community that she or he leads. And I'd like to end with a quote. A leader is best when people barely know she or he exists. When the work is done, the aim is fulfilled, and then people will say, we did it ourselves. Very, very profound. When people barely know that he or she exists, because they do the work serving humanity, they do all of that without seeking reward. Let's be the leaders for positive change and bring a better life to all, for the groups that we lead, to really serve ourselves, our family, our communities, and our country. Well, that brings me to the end of this episode. And if you'd like to be notified weekly of new weekly podcasts, please subscribe. The Susan Taylor Podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and in TuneIn. Also on susantaylor.org, you can subscribe by clicking on the podcast to subscribe. Contact us at susantaylor.org if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. And again, I'd like to say, thanks for listening. The Susan Taylor Podcast does come out every week. And until next time, remain calm.